Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and since it's Women's History Month, I'm here today to talk to you about Harlots Season 2. So Season 2 came out in 2018, and it picks off right where Season 1 left off. I'm not sure how much time has passed, but for the most part, not much has passed. Season 2 is a bit more darker than that of Season 1. So what is Harlots? It's on Hulu, and it's a British show that talks about prostitution in the 1800s. Well, no, the 18th century. So it's like 1700s. And this show is quite fascinating and extremely good. Well, at least the first two seasons. The third season is still good. However, the third season pisses me off because pretty much the entire cast is written out of like season 3, and they bring out like a bunch of new people. Now some people do come back for season 3, but not many, and it's quite frustrating, especially when you don't know how story arcs ended in season 2 and you're expecting them to go on and everything. Why they did major recasting of different characters, nobody knows. And so in this show, there are the following types of prostitution. You have the high class type that live in the brothel, like Mrs. Quigley's. Hers are like women who dress very fancy, dress like ladies, rich type women. They have like the powder wigs, the powdered faces, and like the powder white wigs and stuff like that. High class type brothels. Then you have the other type of brothel, like Mrs. Margaret Wells, which is, they dress nice, but they're a little bit more poor in everything. They dress in very brightly colored clothes, and they're slightly trashy in everything. Then you have the tavern hooker type women who work inside like bars, to where they just pick up drunken guys who don't want to go home to their wives. The tavern type is like a lower class type, but the lowest of the lowest type is just your typical streetwalkers and everything, who are about as trashy as they can get and who bang outside behind alleys and everything. Now you have the other type, which are dominatrix, which Nancy does and everything, who live in the house type brothel, but it's not like a clean, nice house, it's like a regular home. And then you have Molly boys. What's the Molly boy? I've talked about that before on a show called The Alienist. And Molly boys are male prostitutes who cross dress. And they can range anything from a kid on up to an adult. And they work primarily that in the streets, and some actually have Molly houses and everything. Go watch my review on The Alienist. It's a very good show on HBO Max. Anyways, this show is more than just women clickety clacking with men and stuff. These women act like mobsters, gang members. Like, it is brutal and everything. It's a fight for survival of who can get who and who can get much money. There's tons of betrayals in here. Basically, it's every person for themselves, and they will betray their friend for a coin piece. Because back in those days, you needed money big time for two necessities. One, food. Two, a place to sleep. And if you ain't got that, then you're out on the street and you're out in the cold and starving and stuff. And so prostitution, as we all know, is the oldest profession there is. Many women were not allowed to work back in those days. The only job a woman could get is being a housemaid, working in a tavern, as a maid, or like bartending, like a boarding house. Or simply just marry a man and, like, cook and clean and stuff like that, and he'll take care of you. But if you couldn't do that, then you had to hit the streets and sell your body and everything. And it was against the law to do that. So they're constantly getting arrested. Season 2 is very, very good, but season 1 is a million times better. Every season is 8 episodes and an hour. The problems I have with season 2, it's just a retread of season 1, just a little tweaking here and there. It's the same type of plots, the same type of stories, characters. Your main characters are the main ones that have, even though your main characters are a lot of people in the show, some of them really don't do much, but a lot of them do. And especially last season, characters that had a lot to do last season just feel like recurring characters this season. And like, side characters. The recurring characters are very recurring side characters with not much growth or development. Some people who had storylines last season are just doing the exact same storylines this season. Some characters from season 1, like some of the working ladies, do not appear in season 2, and they're a brand new working ladies. But that's all they're there for, just the work. And not like they're just getting regular people, they're getting famous people and stuff who are just there just to stand there and pretend like to smile and say something once in a while, and that's it. And I'm quite shocked. Like, okay, there's a show I love and talked about called Dairy Girls. There's an actress on there who plays Claire. She's the blonde one on Dairy Girls. She is recurring, or she's a guest star in season 2 of Harlots. And, well, she doesn't do nothing in the show. I think she occasionally straddles one dude, but that's about it. But she does nothing. Also, there is a lack of clickety-clacketing going on in this season. It's called Harlots, but ain't no clickety-clacketing going on. But still, even though there's none really going on, there's still plenty of man booty. And I hate that. I hate seeing naked man booty. This season surprised me. There are no new women in this season. In the first season, there was. And the second season, the very beginning, you get like a half glimpse of a naked woman with Lucy, and that's about it from the behind area. And you barely see her because part of the camera is cutting her off. And I'm just kind of like, dude, I get to see all this naked man booty, but no women. That's totally jacked up. However, in this season, I'm learning more stuff. I'm learning that they had dildos back in those days. I'm very shocked and surprised. After doing a little research online, my God, those things were invented in the 5th century, back in the Greek and Roman days. And back in those days, they were different. They were made from either wood, teeth, bone, steel, like all kind of different materials. Shocking. Very shocking. Teeth? Like, come on, man. Bone? That's just nasty. Wood I can see because wood was very available back then. But the teeth and bone? Like, what the world? Like, they couldn't use their fingers or a cucumber. Some people use breadsticks, I just read. Insane. Not only is that insane, but they had condoms back in the 1700s. And what's so gross and nasty? The women would just wash the condoms and reuse them for different men. That is nasty. That's why so many STDs were around back then, like syphilis and everything. But back in those days, they call it the French pox. But yes, this season is much darker. Miss Quigley is out for blood and out for revenge for every person who done her wrong. Miss Quigley is the true main villain because she is pulling all the strings. A lot of bad stuff is happening this season because of her. This woman is gangster and she is out for blood. And the organization that appeared towards the end of last season, the Spartans, they are in full effect this season. And they are our second primary villains. We also have a new justice dude and chief justice and everything. He is somewhat, the justice is somewhat of an ally of all the protagonist women. However, the Supreme Chief Justice dude, he is an ally of Miss Quigley. And what she says goes. There is betrayal, backstabbing, actual stabbing, a hanging and everything. And one primary character is written off. Why is she written off? Because she had a gig in The Walking Dead. She played Alpha in The Walking Dead. Personally, I understand that's a big deal to be on The Walking Dead, but I never liked Alpha. But I love the character on this show, and when she left, boy, it was devastating. She does reappear in the third season in a couple of episodes, but her loss is like felt on the show. And there's a lot about the third season I do not like. But I'll get into kind of that a little bit towards the end. And so, like I said, this season, it piggybacks off of the first season. And well, as we all know, Sir George is dead from the first season. Lucy Wells, the daughter of Maggie Wells and sister of Charlotte Wells, she stabbed him when he tried to assault her. And then Margaret Wells protected her daughter even more by strangling that man to death. She had her common law husband, William North, to dump his body in the lake, but they found his body. After a lot of accusing and backstabbing here and there, the Chief Justice dude was trying to cover that up along with some other stuff. And it is there where one of the Spartans stabbed him and killed him and everything. And well, that was Lord Fallon. Lord Fallon, like I said, when they retread like plots from first season, my God, he is the crazy obsessed person who is dangerous. One of Miss Wells's daughter betrays her, and the other one is stuck up her butt. And it's just kind of like, it's just a retread of like last season, really. Third season, things do turn upside down and crazy. But with the loss of so many characters, it just don't feel that important, you know? And so this episode, the first episode, my God, it kicked off in a big, big, big way. Basically, Margaret Wells and Harriet, the former slave, they got into a heated discussion. See, in the last season, when William helped to get Harriet's kids back from their brother. See, Harriet's kids were slaves to their own brother, who was a white dude, who Harriet was messing around with their dad. And so he helped get them back. When he did that, she started to have eyes for him. And Margaret saw that last season towards the end. In the beginning of the first episode, they're shouting at each other, talking about every time me and my man be together, you always giving him the googly eyes and blah, 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 stuff like that. And they just get into it big time. And so William is pissed because William has never touched Harriet. The only woman he's ever touched is Margaret. Even though last season, Margaret banged her former lover to get some money to keep her house. Ah, these harlots. And so Margaret is furious and she kicks Harriet out her home along with her two kids. And then her and William just get into a shouting match. And William just leaves. And Margaret's pissed. Like, you can't leave me. You can't leave our son. By the way, they have a son together named Jacob. And he leaves his son and he leaves his wife, Margaret. And he's just like gone. And he stays gone for a very long time in this season. Margaret is so pissed that because she's also pissed at Harriet, because Harriet blackmailed her because she knew that Margaret killed Sir George. And so like Margaret, she had to give her Harriet money to like buy her kids and all this stuff, and that was the money she's supposed to use to keep her home, all kind of stuff. Scandalous, man. They're always for themselves on this show. And so like then Margaret threatens to kick out Fanny and Fanny's baby. Margaret Wells has a rule. You can bang, but you better not get knocked up. If you do, you're out. But she let Fanny stay last season, but now she's threatened to kick her out. And she's also pissed because the French lady from last season has left and did not pay her debt. So Margaret is just furious and everything. And so with that, Harriet, her story arc this season, which is not much, by the way. Harriet barely does anything this season. So she's at the tavern and everything, and she decides she's going to go live with Charles and Emily Lacey. And Emily has started her own brothel in Charles's house and everything that they got together. And so Emily's trying to do things on her own and change. I'll get into Emily a little bit later. So Harriet's now working for her. And Harriet's whole thing, like I said, is basically just working for Emily. But she wants to be her own madam and everything. She doesn't want to have to take orders no more. She wants to run it, and she wants to run it with only black people. Now, Harriet is somewhat based off of a real life person in real life. This whole show is based off of a novel and everything from a historian. In Harriet, there is one black prostitute from back in the day. They call her Black Harlot. And she was a former slave who was freed, messed around, I think, with her owner, similar to Harriet. And, you know, after that, when he died, just like Harriet's husband died, she had to go to a life of prostitution, just like Harriet. And it was there she started her own business. From what I heard, she was the only black woman to ever do that back in the day. It's very rare to see a person of color doing that. When I talked about the show Warrior, there is a Chinese lady who did the same thing. And, you know, and that was very rare back in those days too. And so like Harriet's whole arc is just what I just said, and that's that. Harriet really did not do much this season. She did a whole lot more last season. So with this first episode, Violet Cross, she is a prostitute who works for that of Nancy, but she's also a thief, and she's also in a relationship with Amelia Scanwell. And well, when Violet was messing around with a dude, she stole his purse. He told the constable, and she got arrested. Everybody showed up in court for that day, and Amelia tried to plead her case, but Amelia's just like a woman. And so the new justice, Joshua, he had Violet branded as a thief and thrown in jail so she could be transported to America from Britain for 7 years. Now, this is terrible. Now, one, branding the person sucks. They put a giant T on her hand to show everybody that she is a thief. Back in those days, if you was an adulterer, they'll put a giant A on you. Now, why is it bad she's going to America, to Virginia? Well, she's black. And back in those days, there was still slavery going around in America. And if she was to be a prisoner and for no matter how many years or even a day in America, the moment she gets there, chances are she's going to be made into a slave. So she know her goose is cooked. So while she's rotting away in jail, Amelia pleads with Justice Joshua. And, you know, and it works. So he releases her and everything, only so that she can be a maid in his house. However, man, I can't believe it. He's not paying her. He's not paying her a dime. So basically, she's a slave working in his house for free. But at least she has a place to live and she's not prostituting no more. But she wants to be back out in the street, but she can't. And so her story arc for the rest of this season is trying to give him advice because he's having a hard time. Cause he's an outstanding guy who's stern and just wants the justice to prevail. But he's starting to build certain relationships with women in this season, like Amelia, and he's realizing that a lot of these harlots are not as nasty and mean as he thinks, especially when they keep telling him that Miss Quigley is a very evil woman and stuff. But he has to keep taking it out on all the good like women and stuff like Nancy and Margaret Wells. And so like she tries to give him like advice here and there and let him know that she sees certain people who work in the Justice Department messing around with like streetwalkers and stuff. And so like while working there, Amelia, she's coming over for some one-on-one what's a good innuendo? Finger play. I can't think of nothing. I can't think of nothing. But she's there to play like the, I don't know, violin, the harp, whatever. You know what I'm saying? But she's there to teach Violet how to read. That's the cover. Now, while in that episode, still in the beginning, people are shocked and amazed to see Miss Quigley has been brought forth in the court of law. And they don't know why. But it turns out it's because she got found out that her boarding house is really a brothel. Well, screaming in the back is Margaret Wells talking about she kidnapped girls and lets them get assaulted and killed and all this other stuff. And which is true from last season. And so he's all like, do you have any proof? And they're like, well, no. But there's only one person who can prove it, and that's one woman that she kidnapped and everything, Emily Lacey. But Emily Lacey will not speak. And so he's all like, Miss Quigley, you're going to jail for like running a brothel and everything. So she's locked up and everything. And Margaret and all of them are ecstatic. And so like, while in there, Miss Quigley is still running things behind bars. She bribes the guard to like send a message to the Spartans. But he wants more than just money. He wants a hand job. So Miss Quigley, with her eyes up in like the ceiling, is just a whacking. A whacking and a jacking. And so the message she sent to that of like the Spartans is to send a message to Margaret Wells. What is that message? Well, like I said before, the Spartans, what they do is they assault and then they murder young girls and everything. Well, one of the Spartans, I forget his name, starts with an L. Lennington, I think it is. He goes to pay Margaret Wells' house a visit, but she's not there. But one of the girls is named Kitty Carter, and so he takes Kitty Carter out, and they clickety clack off screen. But then he shows up with a mask, and he hands Margaret Wells later on at night a human heart, and she has no idea who this is from. But whose heart is it? Well, it's Kitty's. Okay, he later gives Margaret Wells the body. Throat is slit, blood is everywhere. And Margaret is like beside herself. Now, this was Fanny's friend. And so she's taking this very personally. And Margaret is outraged and everything. She's trying to get the Chief Justice dude, to do something about it, but he wants proof. Basically, proof back in those days is saying, hey, that person did something and I saw it. You saw it? Yeah, I saw it. All right, well, they're getting hung the next day. That's literally proof back in those days. The justice system was so messed up back then. And so, like, Fanny, she wants revenge. Fanny does not do much this season, again, but she has a bit more to do in the first half of the season. Basically, she's upset and she wants, like, justice. She tells her baby daddy, who's a constable, what happened. And so this is when Miss Quigley's place gets, like, shut down. And so Miss Quigley has to go someplace else. I know what you're asking. Well, ain't she in jail? Well, I'll get in that a little bit later. And so, like, Fanny, when they're like, what they do is that when they have to go and pick up like new girls, they have to pick up guys, and so they do like this big formal thing where they all dress up, put on masks on their face, like stuff like that, and present themselves to like gentlemen, aristocratic type gentlemen and stuff like that. And so like in Kitty's hair was a button. That button belonged to Liddington. And so Fanny gave it to the justice dude. And so they've been looking for who that button belongs to. When they spot somebody with that button on their jacket, they know now who it is, and they tell the justice dude. But it does not work. Because why? Because Liddington is an aristocrat and a white man and a lord. And they rarely get blamed for anything and go to jail for anything. That's basically all Fanny does this season. I feel so bad. She never really has anything to do. But I think she has a lot more to do in the third season because, well, there are less like characters that are recurring and new people and stuff. And so I still can't say his name. Prince Razuzal or something like that. The Molly boy. He goes to Margaret Wells and he's all like, I saw the former Chief Justice dude get stabbed by a man, but I don't know this man's name, but I can point him out and everything. So the Molly boy is going to be a witness. All they need, because the former justice dude was working for Miss Quigley. She used to give him women so that he can kill and everything and torture and assault. So they have one witness. Now they need another. They need the woman who was kidnapped from last season. They need Emily Lacey. And so she does not want to say nothing because she's scared of Miss Quigley. Because she really screwed Miss Quigley up last season. And she also stole her son from him, who she bangs. The son's like an adult. Anyway, but Emily finally decided, all right, fine, I'll testify. Well, something bad happened. When Kitty Body showed up dead, Molly boy took off running. And he ain't been seen since later on in the season. And so with him gone, Emily's like, screw it. I ain't saying a word. Now, Molly boy dude, like he went to Margaret Wells to turn in Miss Quigley. But then, just like last season, he turned on Margaret and he went back to Miss Quigley to get some money. So he ratted her out. And so that's basically what he does. Now, last season, he had a slight bit of a story arc where he had a boyfriend that was dying of the flu. He went to Miss Quigley to get some money. His boyfriend has now died. And so after that, what is it? When he sees later on who the killer is later on in the season, he takes off running because that dude is after him with a knife. And Amelia ends up getting stabbed by mistake because when Molly boy was like running, Amelia saw him, gave him a hug, turned around, and boom, got stabbed by mistake. Then after that, he took off running again. And so, like, we don't see him no more for the season. And not only do we not see him no more for the season, but he was written off the show in the third season, only to be replaced by a new gay male character and stuff. And the new gay male character actually has more to do. So that sucks for like the Molly boy in this season. He's never really had anything to do on the show. He just slinks around at night. He waxes dudes and he just rats people out. So let me get back into how Miss Quigley got out of prison. So Charlotte, last season, Charlotte told her former lover that since Mrs. Quigley is the reason why her mom's a prostitute, her sister's a prostitute, and she wants revenge on Quigley. So she's pretending to be friends with Quigley. And so she has her bailed out of jail. Miss Quigley needs money, so she has Charlotte go to like Mrs. Fitzwilliam, because Quigley has information on a lot of people that she blackmails people. And so she was able to get herself bailed out. So now Miss Quigley's out and she wants some revenge. And so like Charlotte is said to be the most gorgeous woman in town. Every man wants her. And so like because of this now, she is still working behind the scenes. And she still is upset at her mom because her mom has pretty much put her out and constantly tries to like suit her with guys. And she hates the idea her mom made her a streetwalker and made her sister into one. But she loves her mom. And and she hates Miss Quigley. The only problem is Charlotte constantly screws up. She has good ideas. They just keep like getting thrown back in her face because people keep betraying her and stuff. They keep ratting her out. And, other people are starting to pick up on that. And so when Miss Quigley is out, she can no longer go back to her place because they realize, oh, it is a brothel and not a boarding house for young girls. So she goes to Mrs. May's place. And that's the woman who taught Mrs. Quigley everything she knows and stuff and took her in as a mother figure. She knows who Margaret is and Nancy and Charlotte and all that stuff. And she tells Charlotte, if you mess with my girl, Miss Quigley, I'm going to mess with you. She is a mean woman and stuff. And so because of this, Emily, Lacey, and Charles now know Miss Quigley is out. And when they find that out, they were living in her place. Now, with them, Emily Lacey. I love saying that name. And so, like, her and Charles are still together, and she now is her own madam, but she's still clickety-clack met to the dismay of that of Charles. She wants women to work for her, so she wants the more exotic. She takes in Harriet. She takes in this tall black woman who was working in a tavern named Limehouse Nell. Why is she called Limehouse? I have no idea. And so she also takes in Cherry. Cherry has dwarfism. And Cherry is all about herself. Margaret took her in when she got too drunk. But then Cherry betrayed that of Margaret. Basically, Cherry does anything for money. And she also likes Charles. She will betray you in a heartbeat. This is how Mrs. Quigley started finding things out about Charlotte. Is because Cherry ratted her out. And so Miss Quigley, boy, she out for that revenge on Emily Lacey. Some men came into like her brothel, messed the place up. So the women had to chase the men out with like sticks and boards and stuff. It's a real hilarious scene, but Emily is terrified because she knows Miss Quigley wants her. She keeps going back and forth to Quigley's house whenever Quigley's not there. And Charles is beside himself. He wants his mom back. He wants his money back. He wants his house back. And, he wants to be back in his mom's good graces. And he does. To the dismay of Emily Lacey. Charles is a mama's boy, more so this season than last. At least he manned up in last season, but this season he is just a mama's boy. And so when Noah is trying to teach him how to fight and all this and that, he goes crawling back to his mom. His mom is delighted to have him, but his mom wants him to give up Emily. When he doesn't, she kicks both of them out the house. Especially when she finds out they were staying in her house and Emily was like pretending to be her, still dressing up like her and everything. And so basically, Charles's entire arc is that he's going back and forth from Emily to that of his mom. And he doesn't want his mom to hang. And when they keep trying to tell him, like, hey, your mom is doing this and she's doing that, he doesn't want to believe nobody. And he's seriously just about to like give up on Emily till she lies and says she's pregnant. She put a sofa cushion underneath her belly, her dress and stuff like that, and pretending to be pregnant. Emily made the mistake of telling her ladies that she's faking the pregnancy. She told Harriet. Harriet told Limehouse, and Limehouse told Miss Quigley. So she tells Charles, and Emily is now done for. Kicked her out and everything. And Emily, it's so sad, man. It's like Emily really didn't do nothing bad this season. And she was even going to testify against Miss Quigley twice. And so when she gets kicked out, she's berating, like, her other workers, talking about, like, this is all y'all fault. Now we're tavern whores and everything, which is one of the lower class. And we see a drunken Emily Lacey trying to, like, pick up drunken men. And it's sad because Emily actually was a good person this season, unlike the last season. And she's now just, like, out of it. Now, Limehouse, she literally does nothing this season. She chases a guy out the house who tried to like destroy the house, and like she just screws things up for Emily. And other than that, like she really has no arc, like at all. That's something that's bugging me in this season, is that a lot of these recurring characters have no substance behind them, no story, no nothing. So it's kind of hard to invest in them because they're literally just there. And we do not see her no more in season 3 because she got written off at the end of this season. In fact, the most shocking thing of them all is Charles. He got written off in season 3. And it's like, where he at? And stuff. Like, it makes no sense because he actually turned on his mom towards the end of the season, locked her in a room. She's screaming, she's hollering and everything when he finds out that she kidnapped a virgin and been starving her and letting her like get messed around by men. So he has finally turned his mom in, and he turned her in to like the constable and the chief justice, to where, because she was banging like the head chief justice dude, but even he couldn't save her and stuff. And he turned on his mom. So you think he would be there in season 3, but no. That was the most shocking of them all. Plus, he's good for comedic relief. Lucy Wells, the youngest daughter of that of Margaret, and she is the second born. And she took an interesting turn this season. One, her blonde hair is gone, and now she's a brunette. Like, that's just weird. Anyway, she takes an interesting turn. She meets a suitor, Lord Fallon. She has no idea he's evil. And so she's falling in love with him and all this other stuff. She is liking the idea of being a prostitute more and more. And so, like, when Lord Fallon gets accused of, like, killing the former Chief Justice dude and stabbing that of Amelia, she decides she's gonna lie and be his alibi. And she doesn't want to hear what her mom has to say. She has literally betrayed that of her mom. When her mom finds out, she is devastated because her, not my camera over, because her mom knows that Lord Fallon is a very evil man. And so I was very shocked and surprised to see that Lucy, sweet little Lucy from last season, would betray like her Fallon and everything, all for some man she loves. And so then she decides to sneak and look at like his jacket. It has blood around like the cuff sleeve area. So she knows that he did indeed stab, what's her name? So then she goes back to her family and everything. But I was still shocked and surprised she betrayed her family. Charlotte Wells is trying to do everything she can to bring Miss Quigley down. And for the most part, it's not working out so well after getting like betrayed and ratted out and everything. Miss Quigley has found her out and she is not happy. And so, but one person she bonds with is Mrs. Fitzwilliam. She bonds with her so much that those two end up starting a relationship together, and they work to try to bring Miss Quigley down. Well, when bad stuff starts to happen to Margaret, they finally have like evidence they need to bring down Miss Quigley, only for Miss Quigley to hold something over Miss Fitzwilliam, and she betrays that of the gang and everything. And so, but what's cool about Charlotte this season is that she's actually on the right side, even though she's playing like a mole, because last season her and her mom really went through it. And but this season is just all about her trying to be like, cunning, trying to. I like the idea she's trying to take Miss Quigley down because her whole family's life is messed up because of Miss Quigley. Miss Quigley bought her mom when her mom was only 10 and put her in a life of prostitution. And then her mom did the same thing with both her girls and stuff. So Mrs. Quigley is to blame for like so much of their turmoil and everything and so many arguments. Abigail is a virgin. Abigail is recruited by Quigley and Charlotte. Charlotte feels guilty for recruiting her, and when she finds out what Miss Quigley does to young girls, she recruits so that she can go to the Spartans and everything. And so she's trying desperately to get like Abigail out, but she is unable to. But then she sends that of Charles and Emily Lacey to rescue her. When they do, this is what causes Charles to like turn on his mom and everything. And I feel bad for Abigail. She's just like a virgin, never been kissed by a dude. And now she's being like held hostage and like assaulted like every night and everything. And not only that, but starved. Now she is supposed to testify against Miss Quigley, but like it doesn't matter because Charles let her run off and everything. So now she's unable to like testify, which is to the delight of Mrs. Quigley until Charles locks Miss Quigley in a room, and then he goes gets the constable. What happens to Miss Quigley after that? After all that screaming and hollering, they locked her up in a mental institution. And Mrs. Scanwell is there praying over the crazy women, and Miss Quigley is outraged and just hollers and screams. Florence and Amelia Scanwell. So basically, they took a turn for a very interesting path. Last season, Florence was constantly preaching near the house of Margaret Wells, chasing away her men, causing the mob to like break in the house and assault like the women and stuff. Because she was working for Miss Quigley as like a spy. But then Miss Quigley had something on Florence, because see, Florence used to be a streetwalker back in the day. And now she's a godly woman who's going blind. And so she keeps telling Quigley, I will work for you no more. You had nothing over me. Well, Miss Quigley has finally decided to let the cat out the bag and publish it in the newspaper and stuff. Now, by this time, they were living on the streets in season 2, her and her daughter, until Margaret Wells did something that was so profound. She let them stay in her home for free, and they didn't have to mess around with nobody. Because of this, Florence is now ally of Margaret. Now, Florence is a bit racist. She hates harlots. She hates black people. She don't like Amelia hanging out with Violet. And when she finds out those two been messing around, she ain't too pleased by that. She keeps trying to marry off Amelia to that of Chief Justice Joshua or Joseph or whatever his name is. And so like, because he likes her and everything, he wants to marry her. But when he finds out about what her mom's past, he no longer wants to marry her. But then he does end up wanting to marry her. Now, what's interesting is that these three characters, Florence, Amelia, and Joshua, are all written off in season 3. We no longer see them and everything. And it's like, what happened to them? They were such big parts of like this show. And that's what pisses me off about season 3 and everything. Nancy, this season, she's basically trying to do her best to get Miss Quigley, in jail. Her and Margaret used to work for Miss Quigley, and they both ran away when they was young, and they only had each other. She is secretly in love with that of Margaret and would do anything for her kids. Nancy, whole thing is trying to gather as many witnesses as she can, but it's hard. Her main witness is Emily Lacey, but Emily doesn't really want to do it, and so she's constantly trying to find people this season. When something really bad happened, I think to Kitty, this is what really gets like the town people riled up at night. So it's Margaret Wells and it's Nancy, and they go to the Chief Justice dude home. They're banging on the door and they want justice. And Nancy literally tells him, if you don't give us justice, we'll string her up ourselves. This pisses him off to where they get into a confrontation and she is arrested. And so he has to make an example. What does he do? He has her chained to a pole and whipped in front of everybody. And this used to be a way they used to dish out like punishment to people. They will literally put them to a pole and whip them on the back where their back is scarred up and bleeding. And Nancy's back is jacked up to the point where she has to be carried out of there by William North. Normally they will like whip you 50 to like 100 times and stuff. Now the interesting thing about that is that she's a dominatrix and she's constantly spanking men with her little like broom thingy and stuff. So in a way it's almost like revenge or karma, something like that, but it's still messed up because Nancy's a really good character and she did not deserve that. And so this whole season, like I said before, she is trying to get everybody riled up to take Quigley down. And she is able to get a couple of witnesses towards the end of the season. Hannah is a young girl who Margaret Wells takes into her brothel. She finds her off the street and examines her. And she's played by the girl from Dairy Girls. And so basically she's literally just there on the show just to talk, say something witty or say something sassy or something like that. But there's really nothing to her character. She's literally just there. Noah is a black man who fought in the war against the French. And when Williams finds him, he finds him in the bar talking about how he fought in the war and all this other stuff. Mostly he just gets into a bunch of like bar fights. When William and Margaret had that huge fight, he said either, I can't remember which one, because he's a little drunk. He said either that's not how you talk to a woman or that is how you talk to a woman, which pisses off Williams, and Williams beats the snot out of him. After that, Williams realizes that he can really fight. And so he starts making money off him in bar fights. But then after that, he is just wandering around and he meets Charlotte Wells. And well, they clickety-clack. Then after that, he ends up clickety-clacking with Harriet. So at some point when Miss Quigley starts sending thugs to that of Emily Lacey's place, he goes there to act as like a bodyguard. And he teaches Charles how to fight. And so like after that, he just pretty much hangs out with the Emily girls and stuff. At some point when Charlotte Wells needs a gentleman to buy the virgin girl back from Mrs. Quigley because she feels terrible about what she did, they dress him up as a gentleman. And then Mrs. Fitzwilliam gives him like her money and her necklace to like buy him and stuff. And he's doing a good job and it almost works until he gives the added incentive of the necklace, which Miss Fitzwilliam's brother is there and recognizes that necklace. So Miss Quigley has him thrown out and beat up. When Miss Fitzwilliam wants her daughter from boarding school, somebody said that a black man came to pick her up. She assumes it's him and not William for whatever reason. So she sends the thugs to go beat him up again. Other than that, he is just seen hanging out with the ladies and stuff. There's not much to his character. I wish there was. Like I said, with 8 episodes and them focusing so much on the 4 main characters, I wish they really just would have given him more to, well, actually the 6 main characters. I wish they would have given him more to do. Now, this is what's confusing me. In season 3, I remember there being a black man. And I remember him getting to a bit of a scuffle to where a bunch of slave hunters took him and was going to make him into a slave, which he's a free man, by the way, but they don't care. It's been a while since I saw season 3. I assumed it was Noah, but from what I'm reading online, he's only in the 2nd season. So I'm not sure until I watch the 3rd season. But if it's not him in the 3rd season, well, then they wrote him out. Isabella Fitzwilliam. So Isabella Fitzwilliam is the new character of the show. Her brother is also a new character. And Isabella is played by, what's her name? What's that dude from Aerosmith? Steven Tyler. Oh, this is Liv Tyler. That's right. This is Liv Tyler. I really like her on the show. She has a great look, and she looks great in like 1700 clothes and stuff. And she has a huge, huge hair. And so she's a very nice, sweet woman, very caring and stuff. She is controlled by that of her brother, and she hates it. Basically, money that was left to her in a dowry, she is not allowed to spend or keep as her own. Her brother has all her finances and she wants it back, but he controls her with that of an iron fist. He is also super creepy and everything. It turns out that she begins to bond with that of Charlotte, and she tells Charlotte plain and simple, do not let my brother have you. Well, Charlotte, when at first was going to do that until Miss Quigley's around and the dudes start offering lots of money. So Charlotte takes it. And it's revealed that like he wants everything that Isabella has. And it turns out in a dark, dark secret, Miss Quigley has some secrets on like Isabella, blackmailing her and stuff. Turns out that secret is that when Isabella's brother was younger, he forcibly took her in the middle of the night. And she has a daughter who goes to boarding school, a teenage daughter. Turns out the father is Isabella's brother from when he assaulted her and stuff. The brother has no idea. That is disgusting and gross, and sadly it happened a lot back in those days. Sometimes it even still happens till this day, and it's just nasty. Stinking little Duggar family. Anyway, so I can't believe them people got famous, that nasty thing. Anyway, so Isabella desperately wants away from her brother, and she wants to keep her daughters safe. When Miss Quigley is so pissed off at Isabella and is going to spill the secrets, this is when, like, you know, Isabella, Charlotte, and like the Wells people take Sophia, Isabella's daughter, away from that boarding school. When they bring her back to the brothel, Isabella's all like, this is a brothel, this is an unholy place, I can't be here, and all this other stuff. So, but then her mom's there, and so they live there. Sophia is disgusted by what she sees over there, but she stays with her mom, and her mom tells her, your uncle's a very dangerous man, stay away from him. Well, of course, somebody rats out Sophia location to that of Miss Quigley. So Miss Quigley's desperately looking for her. And when she finds her and everything, she takes her to that of her uncle. Now Miss Quigley spilt the beans to what's the name? Harcourt. And that's the brother's name, weird name. And so like he now knows that's his daughter and stuff. And he's thrilled to have his daughter slash niece. Well, When he takes them, well, when Miss Quigley takes Sophia's so stupid, man. She goes with Miss Quigley. Don't know her at all. It just goes with her, talking about, I'll take you to your uncle where you can live in a nice house. And of course, because Isabella doesn't want to be in a brothel, she goes with Miss Quigley. And she goes and lives with her uncle, knowing that he's an evil man. And so Isabella shows up and she's all like, look, I'll give you the location of Lord Fallon if you have in writing that like you will leave me alone, you will leave my daughter alone, you will give me my money and all this other stuff. So he agrees, but we never see him write the letter out and stuff. And then Isabella gives up the location of Lord Fallon, which pisses off the others and stuff. I'm telling you, man, everybody's always in it for themselves. Well, her brother, is there really any point in talking about her brother? I mean, I kind of almost did here, but I'll talk about him a little bit. Harcourt Fitzwilliam. And so he's the nasty brother of Isabella. He's also the high king of like the Spartans, that little nasty organization of aristocratic men who assaults and like murders women. He's a hoe. He messes around with lots of women. He's a little like funny, like he's a little comedic sometimes in his snootiness ways. Like when he's snooty, it comes out very comedic. He's the dude who was in that Britannia show. He's really hilarious in Britannia. And so like I didn't realize he was this old because like he looks a little bit younger in Britannia. Anyway, so like he's part of the Spartan like organization. And he helps out Miss Quigley a lot, but he could care less about Miss Quigley and stuff. But he helps her out because men in his organization are messing up and they're getting their murders are starting to be found out. So he organizes, like, since he's like an aristocratic man, when like, Lord Fallon is arrested and stuff, he has them taken out. He gives them a fake alibi and all this other crap. He throws his power around like many men did back in those days. When Lord Fallon messes up so severely where he can't help him, he has Lord Fallon do the ultimate price. So let's get into Lord Fallon. Lord Fallon. He is very similar to that of Sir George, and also he is friends of Sir George. Lord Fallon showed up in season 1 towards the end to discover Sir George's dead body. And he is the one who killed the original Chief Justice dude in season 1. This is the dude that the Prince Molly Boy dude saw. And so his role in this is that he is enchanted by Lucy Wells, and Lucy falls head over heels for him. She assumes he's a nice guy because he doesn't act creepy towards her. But then when they are around, they start to bond in a very disgusting, intimate way. He starts talking about like murder and how he has murdered people and how it gives him like a rush and how it gives him like a natural high. And like a fool, Lucy reveals, well, I have killed too. And it is a rush and everything. Lucy is very different this season. I can't believe the way she is. And so she spills the beans that she is the one who killed Sir George and everything. She has no idea he knows Sir George. So, but he is falling madly in love with her. And so, like, when it's revealed that the Molly Boy knows who he is, he goes after the Molly Boy. And this is when Amelia gets stabbed. And so he needs an alibi, unless he's going to jail. And Lucy gives him a fake alibi and stuff. She turns against her family. But then it's later revealed that she finds out he was the person who stabbed Amelia and everything. So now she wants nothing to do with him. But anyway, it's weird how he's able to seduce her to the point of twisting her mind so badly. When Lord Fitzwilliam tells him that like the girl you stabbed is alive, but she's clinging on to life and she is woken up and she could implement you in a crime. So what does he do? he goes to fix it and everything. He goes over to the Chief Justice dude's house where Amelia is at. And when Amelia's asleep and everybody's gone out the house, he puts a pillow over her face. He nearly smothers her to death until Violet comes in and knocks him over the head with like a metal pitcher of water. So after that, they get Nancy, and he is now tied up, and they want him to start confessing. But of course, he won't do it, so they leave him there. So when I forget, they tell somebody that they have him in custody. They have him tied up. I think they tell what's her name? Isabella. And this is when I can't talk. Isabella tells her brother, and she's all like, "Well, has he gone before court?" She's like, "No, it's worse. He's tied up by women, and you know he's gonna squeal eventually." So this causes her brother to panic. And so when her brother frees him and everything, he takes him to like a room that's like dark with candles. Who's in there? The Spartans in there with tons of candles. And we see Lord Fallon write a fake confession talking about he stabbed Amelia. He stabbed like the Chief Justice dude. He did this, and his grief has driven him to suicide. Yes, he must now pay the ultimate price for screwing up so much so that he won't like rat his brothers out. But this organization is very tight to where they don't rat their brothers out. And so Fitzwilliam tells him, you can take the poison or you can stab yourself. Boy, Lord Fallon said, I'm going to leave this world the way I came in. He takes the dagger and he stabs himself in the chest. This is a crazy organization that goes into that of the third season. It gets so bad in the third season that one of Margaret Wells' sisters ends up dying for reals and stuff. Now, let's get into the lady herself, Margaret Wells. Margaret Wells, even though she has a lot to do, she mostly just shouts in this season. It feels like she's the recurring character almost, or a side character. She is front and center, but the war between Miss Quigley is mostly fought through Charlotte and not Margaret Wells. Margaret Wells does do some stuff here and there, but it's mostly to the point of either pissing people off or making people happy. Which is quite a shame because she's such a great actress and everything. And so, like, when she finds out that Lucy is with Lord Fallon and Lord Fallon is a dangerous man, she tries to persuade Lucy to leave, but Lucy is being stubborn. Lucy's problem is, it's weird. See, in season 1, Charlotte's all like, you've given, like, Lucy everything, but you always put me out and try to make me marry men and stuff like that. And you made me, like, a harlot and stuff. But then Lucy's case is that Margaret will not let Lucy be free to marry who she wants and all this other stuff. So it's kind of like an opposite type thing, which causes Lucy to turn on her mother. When she finds out that Lucy has spilt the beans about the murder and everything of Sir George, Margaret decides she can't let her daughter die. So she goes to Justice Joshua and she tells him that she is the one who killed Sir George and that she is the only one and that she hired a bunch of like thugs and whatever to like dump the body. This is now the ultimate price that she must now pay. She must be hung and everything. When other people in town like that Miss Scanwell tells her she only did it to protect her daughter from being assaulted, he tells her even a just act, killing is still wrong and death must be paid with death. She did only this because, see, if she confesses to the crime, like I told you before, all you have to do back in them old days is just confess to something or say you saw something. And that's all it took for a person to be thrown in jail and hung. And so this is why the justice system had to change dramatically as centuries passed, because a lot of innocent people died and stuff just by like pointing the finger. So She is sad in prison, and Nancy's upset. Her whole family is upset. They're grieving because they don't want her hung. Well, Charlotte tries her best to get the Supreme Justice. I call him the Supreme Chief Justice only because I keep calling Joshua Chief Justice, but Joshua is just really Justice. But the Chief Justice dude who is banging Miss Quigley and everything, um, doesn't want to hear anything. He doesn't want to hear Miss Quigley's a bad woman. He doesn't want to hear that Margaret Wells is innocent. But Charlotte and Miss Fitzwilliam tells him, we know we saw you at the brothel and everything. You've been banging Miss Quigley. So, because the Justice Joshua dude barged in as he was like having his man naked booty out and banging Miss Quigley and stuff. And yes, we see that old dude's naked man booty, and I'm just like, why? I don't want to see that. But anyways, so that he's being blackmailed, he's now pissed at Miss Quigley and tells her, like, who have you told that I've been banging and blah, 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 because now I'm being blackmailed, and now I have to pardon Margaret Wells. And Miss Quigley, she lets him know who is the real boss in town, like a true mob boss and everything. And she tells him that you are the chief justice of this town. Every day is a hanging and everything. And hang that woman now. See, Margaret Wells, after confessing, was supposed to be hung a day or two. But Miss Quigley changed it to just a couple of hours. And he forces, after he strips the power of the Justice Joshua, he's all like, I ain't found the replacement for you yet, so I'm giving you back your power for temporarily so you can hang Margaret Wells right here, right now. And that what has to happen. Margaret now has to be hung. And so as she's being hung and the Chief Justice dude is all like she's going to be drowning in her own piss. Because that's what happens when you get hung. Like you literally pee and everything. So, she's being hung and everything, and like Joshua is finally starting to come to his senses, and he is starting to contemplate what he is doing. He can't let her be hung. He tells the Undertaker to stop. And Margaret's all like, no, like I have to die. I have to die for like Lucy. And he's like, no. He brides people off screen. He has her in shackles. And what does he do with her? He has her sent to America so she can serve out her sentence over there for 7 years in Virginia. She does not want this because she wants her daughter to live. Not only that, but since she's now known for being hung, everybody in town thinks she's dead. She could never return back to her home now. And so, like, he tells her this is the best because now you get to live. But she doesn't see it that way. Plus, not only that, but how would she make it over in America, especially being in prison? So she is now written completely off the show. But she pops back in season 3. For a short time. Why she's written off? Well, there's actual a reason for why she's written off. And I know the actual reason for her. Everybody else, I have no idea. But for her, it has to do with The Walking Dead. She got cast as Alpha. So she had to shave her head, fly on over to wherever they filmed The Walking Dead and play Alpha for at least a season or two. And so it was devastating seeing her leave the show because she's one of the best parts of that show and everything. And it's just like, it's so weird because like the whole feud between her and Miss Quigley, in a way it came to an end and in a way it didn't. Even Miss Quigley visited her in prison just to gloat about how I took your daughter and how I'm going to take her and everything and how she betrayed me and blah, 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 blah. But talking about your daughter says I'm more of a mother than you ever been to her and all this other crap. They really got rid of a great character. And the show in the 3rd season suffered for that too. Because without Margaret Wells, it's weird. Like because Miss Quigley goes through a different path in season 3. William pretty much, his only thing is fighting with Margaret early on in the season, abandoning her and his son, staying in the bar, like, getting drunk and then getting money off of like Noah for fighting and stuff. And at some point, he does return back to the house when Kitty dies, because Margaret's all like, this would have never happened if we had a man in the house. And so he stays for a little bit, only to leave again, only to return again. When Margaret is supposedly hung, he is grief stricken. He goes to where they take the dead bodies. They have no Margaret Wells there. So he tells them go to the other place. He goes place after place after place, but cannot find her body. He finds former Justice Joshua, and he beats the crap out of him, talking about, where's my wife's dead body so I can bury her? And Josh tells him the truth. I never hung her. She's in America, but nobody can know. You must not tell nobody, not even your girls. Well, Lucy and Charlotte are not his daughters. We don't know who their father is because they never reveal it, but he's just kind of like the stepfather. Well, of course, he spills the beans. He spills it to Lucy and Charlotte, Jacob and Nancy. He tells them you can't tell nobody else, not even the working girls and stuff. And so this is what they do. And they keep the secret all the way into season 3. And then, so yeah. Because I've already told you she's been committed to that insane asylum. So that's where she's is in season 3 until, okay, here's a couple of spoilers for season 3, because I'm not going to spoil much because I don't know if I'm going to review it or not. But needless to say, she's in the crazy house, but then she gets out because there's like a fight and an explosion, and she escapes. But the war between the Quigleys and the Wells is weird when it's just Lucy and just Charlotte and everything, you know? And so, like, it's just not the same. And it's weird losing that character. Now, if they would have ended things in season 2 the way it was, Margaret Wells is supposedly dead. Everybody's grieving. She's in America. Miss Quigley's in the crazy house. That would have been the perfect ending, but they was commissioned for 3 seasons. And so season 3 saw like a complete like shift change with new characters, older characters not returning. Season 2, even though it's a retread of season 1, is still enough to keep you invested, and it's still a lot interesting. It's darker for sure. Miss Quigley is a mob boss, man. But it's sad that a lot of characters are just here just to say a few lines and bang a few people and not do anything else. And it's quite sus because there's a lot of good talent in this show. And it's really, they should have ended it with season 2. Even if they were commissioned for season 3, they should have never done it until the Margaret Wells, Samantha Morton's character, she was free from like The Walking Dead. And also, you know what, virus slowed things down. Season 3 is good. It sucks with all these new characters. They're not bad by no means, but they just take the place of characters that you like on like season 1 and 2. And it's just, I don't know, man. It's season 3 just don't feel the same. All these new characters just feel like they don't fit. Even though they're nice, like they can act and everything, they just don't fit. Happy Women's History Month, everybody. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.